All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Mark Hayes, and I am your host for the Parental Playbook podcast. Of course, it's powered by varsityconnects.com, my website there, where we focus on helping parents of student athletes communicate more effectively so they go from stuck, disconnected, and not knowing what to say to having more meaningful and more supportive conversations with their student athlete so they can create a safe space for those student athletes to express when they need help. Because your student athlete is never going to tell you that something is weighing them down. You need to do the work, mom and dad. All right, let's get right into it. Signing day just passed the other day, February 4th. Of course, the early signing period was earlier in December now, from December 3rd to December 5th. And they got some big winners. USC, LSU racking up a whole lot of talent. But again, as we saw with Indiana, you don't need a whole lot of 5 stars. They didn't have any to go 16-0. So what does that tell you there? The evaluation process is crazy, right? It's like everybody's following everybody else. And once one coach says something about a player, it tends to stick, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. So, you have to take that with a grain of salt. So let's talk about who did what, this signing day. And then let's talk about options for you guys out there who maybe did not hear your names called when you thought you might. All right, let's get right into it. Mid-year transfers. Now, juniors can sign starting December 3rd. I wrote that note down. And there were a lot of early commitments this year. But remember, the transfer portal is throwing everything out of whack for you high school athletes out there, moms and dads. The transfer portal is really changing the game. It's the wild, wild west out there, and it enables athletes to move around mid-year, which is really changing things and changing the way that coaches recruit, because they're using a lot of scholarships on these transfers, and they have to. And a lot of NIL money is going there too. So a lot of their energy is going into the portal. So that is a dramatic shift from what we used to see, especially down here in the South. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, right down the street from Beaufort High School, the national champion in high school this year. I had a crazy season. I think they went 15 and got the state championship. And, it's really changed things for them because, they normally put out a whole bunch of recruits. And I'm sure they have some guys who thought, they should have been at least FCF scholarship worthy, and they're probably not going to get that because guys from Division II, Division III are moving on up. And that's the name of the game now. Play your way up. So, if you don't hear your name called, so what? Mount Union is a Division III power. Go to Mount Union. Go to some of these Division III schools. Keep doing the work. Stay in the weight room. Stay on the track. Keep perfecting your craft. Work with your skills coaches. Right? And most of all, stay in the weight room. This is a big boy game. And that's how I raised my sons. I taught them that this was a big boy game. One wanted to do the work, the other one didn't. One was 6'3", 220 as a freshman. The other was 6'1", 170 and was always in the training room. So, this is a big boy game. And if you're not going to play big boy tactics and do big boy workouts, college football ain't for you. I'm still hurting from college football practices and my senior year at Howard University. I got hit harder than I ever imagined I could, at the 1AA level back then. I got tore up, and I'm still paying the price. So, get in the weight room, stop playing games, and, move that iron. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what USC and LSU did. They were the big signing day winners. Basically, 5-star recruits were, bouncing all over the place this year, and there were plenty of them. USC's signing class got 2 5-star recruits, edge rusher Luke Waffle and tight end Mark Bowman. Now, they're highly touted players. They headline a class that's considered one of the biggest in the nation, one of the largest. USC signed 35 traditional recruits, which is interesting because I don't know if they're going to see the kind of input that they were hoping for. Maybe they got strong upper class and they've got time to develop these guys. But, out of 35 signees, I can't imagine more than a handful of them are going to see significant playing time this year. That's just how it is. A lot of these guys are not ready for the rigors of, a 13, 14, 15 game season. So, there's going to be a lot of these guys that just have to get bigger, have to get stronger, have to learn how to compete because it's been easy up until now, right? These are the all-state guys, right? All-American guys where they haven't had to compete. There's been no one, on the practice field with them that could hold them down. So now everybody's good. Everybody's fast. Everybody's strong. You've got to get your mind right and wrapped around that in order to be successful, especially at a place like USC where, you just expect them to have a whole lot of talent. Half of that 2026 class is from Cali, but it also includes 2 of the top 4 prospects from Texas and 2 of the top 8 from Ohio. So USC has long tentacles, long reach, big budget, and they added a lot of talent from elsewhere. They used to, back in my day in the early 80s, they didn't have to leave California. They had all the talent out there. And that's when they were winning national championships. So LSU, did another great job. I'm just so sick and tired of hearing about Lane Kiffin and, what he's doing over there now. How does a guy leave a team, like Ole Miss in a lurch like that? To me, it's just wrong. He got some big transfers over there. He got Sam Levitt, a former starter at Arizona State, who's going to be the quarterback over there. Jordan Seaton is leaving Colorado. Like, why? I don't understand that one. He was the top offensive lineman in the portal, obviously. This was a kid from IMG, one of Deion's first recruits, high-profile recruit coming out of IMG. He was like the top lineman in that class 2-3 years ago when he came out. So he's transferring. LSU also added Winston Watkins from Ole Miss and got that safety from Boise State. I don't know if you've seen Ty Benefield, but he can go get it. He's a tackler, covers a lot of field out there, and they got him from Boise State. Ole Miss edge rusher, Prince Will Umanmian, I believe is how you say Umanmian, is also transferring too. So Lane Kiffin has some nerve, poaching talent from Ole Miss after he left them high and dry in the midst, of a championship run. So let's talk about the coaching changes for 2020. What's happening right around signing day. The top transfers, I gotta say, Josh Hoover is a kid that can really play, and he's going to be a kid that we really keep an eye on. And again, the transfer portal is a wreck, but Indiana's getting this kid. There's another Mendoza there, by the way, but Josh is a transfer from TCU, who can really sling it. Another big addition for Indiana is Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh. So Indiana's going to be good again. They got Kurt Cignetti there. They've already established the culture. And he did something that was really smart. He had a winning culture at James Madison, and he brought over a bunch of kids with him from James Madison to Indiana. And while all of them might not have been, Division I talent, they knew how to practice, they knew how to compete, they knew how to win. And that's the culture he set up over there at Indiana. So now it's ingrained. He's had 2 really good seasons over there. Mendoza really took that program to new heights and just really, really changed the identity of that program. It's the biggest turnaround we've ever seen. Another big transfer, Miami quarterback Darian Mensah coming from Duke. And he is the poster child. Duke was supposed to be suing him for leaving and breaching the contract. And this is what's happening now. Look, 22, 23, 24-year-old men couldn't handle this. And now we've got, college kids, albeit older college kids, trying to deal with this kind of crap and then trying to play. So, it's the NIL era. It's the Wild Wild West. There are no rules. College football needs to rein this thing in if it's going to be fair. But again, nobody wants to talk about fairness while people are making money. So if people are making money, it's all good in the hood. Nobody is really going to bitch about it. So, that's where it stands right now. Darian Mensah can play, one of the top players in the Power 4 conferences. You got some other high-profile talent remaining at Miami. So expect them to, just run roughshod through the ACC this year and then be ready to make another title run again come the football playoff at the end of 26, start of 27 next season. So that'll be interesting to watch. Remember, Miami hasn't won a national title since 2001, but the U says they're back. And I love what they're doing out there. I love Mario Cristobal. I think he's a player's coach. Watching him on the sidelines there, I'd run through the wall for him. And that's the kind of guy you want to play for. You can tell he has a special relationship with his players. And, Mensa may be the leader they need. I wasn't a big fan of Carson Beck when he was at UGA. We watched him a bunch here in Atlanta. We had the UGA games on every week, but, I wasn't a big fan of his leadership. He's out there with 2 Lamborghinis. One of them gets stolen. He's, being linked to porn stars and, hey, look, you can date whoever you want, right? I'm not here to judge, but my thing is you got to be a leader, right? You got to be able to go in the huddle and command respect from all 10 guys that are standing there looking at you while you call the play. And I don't know that he had that. We heard about a couple of outbursts, especially the one at the end of the Indiana game. And he was kind of a sore sport, kind of a little punk ass when he walked off the field and, wouldn't shake hands, wouldn't, interact with the Hoosier players who, wanted to congratulate him on a great season. And it was a great season by all accounts. But, you got to do everything great if you want to win a national championship like Fernando Mendoza did. So, the other big coaching move for this season is the Penn State coach, Matt Campbell. The question will be, does he have the roster he needs to compete in the Big Ten? The Big Ten is tough now, like from top to bottom. There are no easy wins anymore. Even the trip to Northwestern, you can stub your toe, which used to be, the backups, when are we getting in type of game, pressuring the first teamers, run it up early so we can get some action this week. Not anymore, especially with the additions of the teams out west with Oregon and Washington, Michigan, Ohio State, It's going to be interesting. He brought some guys from Iowa State with him. So let's see, what those guys can add to the talent that's already at Penn State. It's interesting too, because I don't know that I would have fired Franklin. I thought he was doing a good job there. Look, coaches coach and players play. You got to get the right guys in position in order to make a play. And you got to put them where their strengths are. And so maybe the higher ups thought Coach Franklin wasn't doing that, but he was running a clean program. Guys were graduating, and it's tough, but it is the business, and I get it. He landed on his feet anyway. I think he took $40 million from Penn State and headed down to Virginia Tech. So that's $40 million in the bank, for his kids. And, they won't have to work. So that is great news for the Franklin family. So all good, to them. All right, let's talk a little bit about, what's going on if you didn't get your name called where you thought you should have. Because there are still options for you out there. I want to tell you about a program that is bringing in top level talent and competing for championships every year. And that is the Pittsburgh State Gorillas. Their 2026 class consists of 32 signees from the high school ranks and 7 transfers. All right. So why am I talking about Pittsburgh State? Well, Pittsburgh State all of a sudden has quietly put a bunch of solid guys in the pros, in the league, in the show. All right. So Pittsburgh State, the Gorillas, I don't know if you guys remember John Brown. Say it again, I'll knock you down. John Brown was drafted first overall in 2014 by the Cardinals. And I don't know if you guys remember, he had a good career. John Brown was a player, and he came out of Pittsburgh State. Notably, recently, cornerback Dallas Flowers and cornerback Rico Payton, right? One for the Bears. Payton played for the Bears. Played for New Orleans, signed as an undrafted free agent in 2024. And Dallas Flowers, I believe, was with the Bears, but I got to check on my math on that one. But here's the deal, though. Cornerbacks, they signed 2 high-level cornerbacks at Pittsburgh State that wanted to come there because they know they are developing guys who can go play at the next level. Think about it. Those guys are going to go there and play right away, right? Because they were getting Power 5 offers, right? Now they're coming to Pittsburgh State. They're going to learn how to play the position, right? They got 2-3 years, right, to improve their technique, their coverage, how to read coverages, how to read offenses, how to undercut routes, right? How to play the corner position. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure. If you haven't been paying attention, corners are making a whole lot of money in the not for long league, right? When you can play corner in the NFL, especially if you're a shutdown dude, if you're a shutdown guy, you're going to make a ton of money. But if you can play corner in the NFL, you can have yourself a nice career and never have to work again. And that's what's happening right now. So guys are going to Pittsburgh State because they know they're developing talent for the NFL. Take a look at some of these other names. Kendall Gammon, drafted in 92 by the Steelers. Ronald Moore, drafted in 93. He was a running back. Troy Wilson, a linebacker, drafted in 93. Bob Goltra, drafted in 1997. So, quietly, they put a bunch of guys in the pros, that you might not have heard about. But this is a great option for you guys who have to play your way up. Because a couple of these signees are going to try to play their way up too. Right? They're going to stay at Pittsburgh State for 2-3 years and then go play 2 or 3 years at a Power 4 school. And then the plan is to be a high round draft pick, first, second, third round draft pick, where you become an instant millionaire in those top 2 rounds, right? And if you're drafted in the 3rd round, you're in good shape. You make some good money. You got a good agent in the 3rd round, you're a 3rd round pick, you're probably going to be around. So, my advice to you parents out there who are talking to your kids right now, who are down in the dumps because, they didn't have anything to sign. I'll just tell you this, Fernando Mendoza signed a blank piece of paper on signing day when he came out of high school because he didn't have any offers and he was going to go to Yale, right? Ivies don't give scholarships. Right? He was probably going to get some grants or something or other, or maybe his parents were going to pay full freight. Whatever. He signed a blank piece of paper. And you know what he did? He stayed in the gym. He stayed working with his position coach. He kept on grinding and kept showing up. And that's the deal. That's what it is right now. You keep showing up. You keep showing up. Keep improving every single day. You can ask yourself, did I get better today? Did I get better today? And that starts now. Don't wait till you get on campus. Start now so when you get on campus, you're making an impact. You've got 5 months, 6 months. What is this, February? You've got 6 months till August to get better, to get bigger, faster, stronger. And, if you need help doing that, next week we're going to have on the podcast Lee Haney, one of the foremost strength experts in the world, former bodybuilder, held so many titles, there are too many to name. But stick around to the podcast because we're going to have that coming up next week. So I'm going to turn that around quick, get it out here for you moms, dads, and you athletes out there watching. So that's the game now. Play your way up. And, this transfer portal era is making a lot of guys have to do that. You are not alone, right? The sweatshirt doesn't matter. Why would you walk on at Alabama and just get a sweatshirt? Because think about it. If you're going to walk on now in the NIL era, how do you think you're going to play? You think they're going to play you when they're paying a guy $75,000, $100,000? Right? I mean, it's not like it was, where a couple of injuries and next thing you know, you're the walk-on that's now, on the kickoff team and on the travel squad. It's not that way anymore. There's so much money floating around these big programs. You'd be crazy to walk on. Right? Because, the chances are slim and none, and Slim left the building a long time ago. So really, really do your homework. Moms and dads, talk to your athletes, and ask, help them get their priorities in order. Help them understand, because you're not going to play. Do you want to go play? If I could do it all again, right? Because I transferred twice before you could transfer without penalty. And I ended up literally playing 2 years of college football out of 6. And if I could go back and do it all again, I'd have probably gone to a Division II school or Division III school and just rode it out, had a blast playing, had a blast on the bus trips. Because when it's all said and done, that's what you miss. Yeah, you talk about the games with the boys and everything when you get together at homecoming and everything, but you really miss the locker room, the laughs, the jokes, right? The food fights. the bus trips, right? That's what you miss. The bonfires. That's what you miss. The camaraderie, the dorm, right? And your friends. Because those guys are going to be in your wedding, right? They're going to be your best man, right? You know, some of them are going to be your doctor. Some of them are going to be your lawyer. Some of them are going to be your dentist. You know, you're creating lifelong relationships. Not that I don't have them from both of the schools that I went to and enjoyed, but there's something to be said about committing to an institution for 4 years. And yeah, I know everybody's moving around. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Find a place where you fit in and go and enjoy it, because you only get to go around once. You don't get to come back and get a do-over, as far as I know. So no one's told me about any do-overs yet, but if I hear about it, I'll let you know. All right, folks, that's the Parental Playbook Podcast edition for this week. I'm your host, Mark Hayes. Of course, hit that like and subscribe button. We thank you very much. Hurry up. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers very quickly. We shouldn't have a problem doing that with all you good folks out there. So when you get the podcast, like it, share it with a friend, and please, please, please don't forget to subscribe. All right, folks, have a great day. We'll see you soon.